Let me try this again. I'm sitting here and here comes the cat. I was supposed to take my kids out to play, but now it's raining. And I wanted to see if the sound of the rain would project into the video. I love the sound of rain. This is what it looks like here in central Arkansas at the moment. I learned a lot from that video yesterday. One of the things I learned is I need to do a better job of explaining terms and explaining some of the groups. One of the groups that I talked about was Opeth, and that's probably the only Opeth CD I have. Most of their stuff I just download. I've heard it all, but I don't think, man, there's probably like 10 friends of mine on Facebook that actually know who Opeth is. They're not a very popular band, and they're actually probably one of the more popular bands that I listen to that I like. Most my CDs I find in thrift stores. And you're not in this part of the country, you're not going to find a lot of popular stuff or not, I'm sorry, the other way around. It's going to be the same old stuff you find over and over again. And Opeth is one of those bands that I just don't think that a lot of people have heard of. Now, another thing I was thinking about is I listen to something a lot called kraut rock, which is basically progressive psychedelic German rock from the late 60s and specifically the early 70s. I don't have any, and I was just thinking about this yesterday, I don't have any kraut rock on CD at all. I don't think I do. You wouldn't find that stuff in this part of the country. You probably wouldn't find it at record stores in this part of the country. So I'm at a loss there. I don't have any, but I like that genre of music just as much as most genres of music I listen to. But you're just not going to find it here. The only stuff that I would ever order online is Latin stuff. Because that's the stuff I like the most, and you're not going to find it here. Can't tell you the last time I ordered a Latin CD, but that was the kind of stuff that I had back then. I threw out the term prog in that last video, and prog is short for progressive rock, which is basically just more inventive types of rock and rolls, longer songs, bigger solos, things like that. And I doubt very many people that would watch this video or watch those videos would know what that term actually means. Let's get started. These are all CDs that were sitting on my shelf that I bought at thrift stores that I intended to listen to, and most of them I think I never listened to. This is stuff that I found. I thought it was worthy of buying. The first one I found is this Vince Gill CD. Vince Gill was the leading singer of the band Motley Crue. And Motley Crue they are like hair metal, but they're not a bad band. And they're kind of a guilty pleasure for me. And this particular album kind of sounds like Motley Crue. It kind of sounds like old Motley Crue. And I think, in a way, it's kind of an underrated album. It sounds like Motley Crue. If you like Motley Crue, maybe you would like that. The second one is Purple Rain by Prince. I don't know that this album needs much explanation. I like Prince. I don't listen to it all the time. It's not something that I pull for a lot, but I do like Prince. The thing that I recognize most about his music is that his sexuality comes out. I don't know, for better or for worse. And maybe for the most part, that's probably a turnoff for me. I don't feel like maybe what he did should have been over-sexualized, but I think it's more of I don't want to say the word gimmick, but more of a way of him to insinuate his music or be more popular, or, Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong has an incredible voice. Ella Fitzgerald, they're both jazz singers. Louis played the trumpet. I'm trying to look on here. I think the best song on here is, it's got a few good ones. Moonlight in Vermont, April in Paris. I was thinking it had that song Cheek to Cheek on it, which is my favorite song by them. It's a song that's very short. I was going to open it up, but it's hard to open it up with one hand. Tom Petty. What album is this? This is some kind of. What is this? That's not Tom Petty? It looks like Full Moon Fever, but it's not. It's the B-52s. I think I paid like 10 cents for that. It Habitat for Humanity. Cornbread, Lee Morgan. Love Lee Morgan. I need to pay more attention to this album because I remember it, and I remember it being really good, but just not having the time to listen to it. Lee Morgan is one of my favorite trumpet players, and on here I'm reading it's got Jackie McLean, which is an alto sax player, which is my favorite alto sax player. He is an extremely, extremely, extremely underrated artist. Jackie McLean is, and I absolutely love his stuff. I've downloaded it all. I've listened to it millions and millions of times just for just how good it is. It has Hank Mobley on it, which is probably my favorite tenor sax player. And it's also got Billy Higgins, which is one of my favorite drummers. I would say for this album, I just didn't listen to it a lot, which is unfortunate because many of his Lee Morgan's albums I've listened to hundreds of thousands of times, and then for whatever reason I never paid attention to this one. One of the turnoffs for something like this is that it's got so many instrumentalists on it. It's a 6-piece, which I like the ones with smaller ensembles, but looking at it, the song that's got, well, maybe this is another thing. It's only got 2 songs that are 9 minutes long, and some of the other ones are a little bit shorter. And a lot of times, I don't feel like with the bigger groups of people that are playing on a jazz album, I feel like that somebody's not going to be able to finish their solo out, and that always bothers me. The longer the solo, the better. The longer you can go on with it, the better. That's my issue with a lot of jazz music. Even for me, the most music I feel like when it comes to jazz, if it's not a 10-minute long song and you got a lot of people playing in the band, that a lot of the information that they're trying to put out on their soloing doesn't get fully realized. That's always bothersome for me. Tammy Impala, Currents. This is a newer album. I found it at Goodwill. Haven't listened to it in probably a couple years, but I remember when it first came out, I listened to it like crazy. I must have listened to it 20, 30 times over and over again. I really liked it a lot. There was stuff that people were listening to at work that sounded a lot like this. And I thought it was interesting that a lot of the I would be like, hey, this sounds a lot like Tammy Impala. And a lot of people didn't even know who Tammy Impala was. And he's the name of this is Currents. He's a more popular musician than most of the stuff that I listen to. Oh, here we go. Joe's Garage. A little bit of water damage. I don't think this all opens up. It's the cover of it's Frank Zappa in blackface. Frank Zappa, how he gets away with wearing, well, I mean, he was a political person, and I don't know how he I know how he gets away. He's Frank Zappa, how he gets away with wearing blackface, because definitely in this day and age you couldn't get away with that. But that's him in blackface. This was it's called Joe's Garage. It's heavy. It was, and these Ryko reissues are not very good. They didn't do a very good job of it, and this was published in 1987. That's crazy. This is an older CD. This was a 2-part album, a 2-disc album, and then he made a Joe's Garage Part 3, like it was Act 1, 2, and 3. And this is the cover for the second album right there. And I love Frank Zappa. I've listened to all his stuff. There's just some of it that sounds a little bit less uninspired than the rest of it, or maybe a little more thoughtless. And I don't think this is all that great. It's very listenable. It's interesting. It's good. But stuff like the one he did before this is called Shake Your Booty, which is kind of a play on words because it's him wearing a wearing Arabic outfit, and it's a play on words. I love that album. That's one of my favorite Frank Zappa albums of all time. But this one right here, it just sounds a lot less realized. There's some stuff on here I like, but overall, I think he does other stuff that is a lot better, a lot more thoughtful, and a lot more inspired. This is Joy Division. The price tag on it says $2. I think I paid $1 for this. At Goodwill, the name of the album's Closer. I couldn't tell you exactly what this particular album sounds like. Joy Division is a good band. They sound maybe like a cross. They inspired a lot of groups. They maybe sound a lot like Tears for Fears and Killing Joke. Does anybody know who Killing Joke is? Killing Joke was a punk rock band, and they're really good. I like them a lot. Killing Joke. They sound very dronish. Do I listen to Joy Division a lot? They're more of a band that I respect because they influenced so much. They came out in the late 70s. I think they influenced a lot of punk rock music. And a lot of people that are really enthusiasts of music listen to Joy Division. A lot of people a lot of bands that I like listen to Joy Division. One of my favorite bands that kind of sounds like them is Sisters of Mercy. And Sister of Mercy had to have been inspired, and they must have greatly revered a band like Joy Division. But they're kind of a punky, drony band from the late 70s, early 80s. I can't remember the name of the album that made them popular, but it shows up on all these best of lists, even stuff like WatchMojo.com and things like that. It's an album. I think it's black. It has a black background. It's gold. And then I think it has like record grooves it's got a box in the middle, and I think that box is record grooves. It looks like I'm going to have to do this in 2 parts. I'm about done with this stack, but this tape's going a little bit long. This is Tori Amos. The price tag on it says 50 cents. I paid $0.25 for this because when I went up to the desk, they said that's color coded and that's half off. And my daughter was there with me, and they gave my daughter a toy. So I got a bunch of CDs for like 25 cents, and my daughter got a toy. But the funny thing about this is probably the stuff that I bought I never listened to. I intended to listen to this. I will say that by looking at the cover of it, and by looking at the name of it, the Choir Girl Hotel, it just sounds like something that's probably just not, it's probably not that good. I love Tori Amos. Tori Amos was actually popular when I was young, when grunge was popular, and it was refreshing to listen to something that was popular, that was good, that had some kind of, actually had merit to it. The music sounded like something that was more artsy and just sounded good. But that album right there, I don't know what it sounds like, and it just, to me, it really doesn't sound that intriguing. The cover of it doesn't look that intriguing, and the name of it doesn't look that intriguing. This is Styx Best Of, and what this is, interesting, this is best of, like the poppy songs from the first 4 albums. The first 4 albums by Styx came out on the Wooden Nickel label, and then it was bought out by MCA when Styx became popular, because most of the stuff was proggy or progressive in the beginning. And it looks like they took those 4 albums, put all the short songs on those 4 albums, the 10 or 11 shortest songs they could possibly find on those albums, and stuffed it into this CD and stuffed it onto a record, repackaged it, and sold it. This is a neat cover, I guess, but what they did is they bought out the Wooden Nickel, or bought out Styx, and then they refurbished the covers of the albums, and the new, I think it's MCA, the new RCA, sorry. They repackaged them, put on these colorful type covers, and sold them as newer albums. Those first 4 albums, Styx 1, 2, Man of Magic is the name of one of them, and The Serpent, I think, is the name of the other one. It's got, the original cover had a picture of a snake on it. I think it's something like that. Those first 4 albums, especially the first 2, and the second one, are really, really good. I like those albums a lot. But like I say, I mean, they took all the short songs on them, and maybe the only one that probably anybody would recognize is Lady. I'm gonna get finished with this stack, and I'm gonna have to do a part 2. Extreme. This is a band. They had a popular song. I wish I could read the name of the songs because there's one song on here that's a ballad that's really popular. May not even be on this album. Extreme 3, Pornographia. I can't pronounce the name of the album. This is a decent album. I remember listening to it. And I think I opened this up a few months ago. And then there was yep, there we go. I'm not that big of a Styx fan. But look at that, Paradise Theater, which is probably my favorite album by Styx. It's a very poppy album. That's funny that happens like that because Styx is not my favorite band by any stretch of the imagination, and that's probably all the CDs I had by them. Cello Sonatos, Emmanuel Axe, and so I want to say El Yo-Yo. That's the name of a Wayne Gorbeo song. Yo-Yo Ma. You remember an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer's bumped his head on a motorcycle accident, and he just walks around saying "Yo-Yo Ma" out of nowhere. And I don't know what that sounds like. I paid 10 cents for it. Here's a Tears for Fears Elemental. Don't recognize any songs on here. I bought it for super cheap, hoping I would, or thinking that I would listen to it. I could very easily part with this. There's one album by them that I listen to. Anytime I want to listen to Tears for Fears, it's the album that's got the song Shout on it. And then it's got another popular song on that album. Wish I could remember the name of that song because that song is like 6 or 7 minutes long. If I think of it in the next video, I'll tell you the name of it. Tears for Fears Elemental. I'm going to have to stop right there. I'm doing a lot better because I'm giving more explanation of the albums and I'm holding them up for longer. But I'm going to have to make this into a part 2 because it's already 17 minutes long.